The blue hologram flickered to life above the conference table, casting an eerie glow across the faces of Earth's top scientists. Dr. Maya Rodriguez leaned forward in her chair, studying the tall, elegant figure that materialized before them. The alien skin had a silver-blue shimmer, and its large eyes held an unmistakable look of superiority. "Greetings. Representatives of Earth," the figure spoke, its voice carrying a musical quality that somehow managed to sound condescending. "I am Ambassador Zethkaros of the Catherian Empire. We bring you an opportunity that your species should consider significant." Maya glanced around the room at her colleagues from the International Space Research Facility. Director Paul Jackson sat with his arms crossed, clearly annoyed at being pulled away from his lunch. Dr. Helen Chang, Maya's mentor, took careful notes as always. The others looked either bored or confused. "For the first time in 3,000 of your Earth years," the ambassador continued, "the prestigious Catherian Academy of Advanced Sciences has decided to extend an invitation to what you might call developing species. Each qualifying civilization may send 3 representatives to attempt our entrance examination." A murmur ran through the room. Maya felt her heart skip a beat. The Catherian Academy was legendary throughout the galaxy. Their scientists had mastered faster-than-light travel, created matter converters that could transform base elements into anything needed, and developed weapons that could reshape entire solar systems. To humans, their technology seemed like magic. However, Zethkaros raised one long, pale finger. "We must be honest about expectations. In our long history, no non-Catherian has ever successfully completed even our basic aptitude assessment. The intellectual requirements are quite demanding. We simply believe it would be unfair to exclude lesser civilizations from the opportunity to try." The word lesser hung in the air like a slap. Maya saw several of her colleagues stiffen in their seats. Dr. Chang's pen stopped moving across her notepad. "The examination covers 17 distinct fields of advanced science," the ambassador explained. "Candidates must demonstrate mastery in everything from 11-dimensional mathematics to exotic particle manipulation. The study materials we provide contain the equivalent of several hundred of your university textbooks. You will have 6 months to prepare." Director Jackson finally spoke up. "And what exactly would be the point of this exercise? Even if someone passed, which you clearly think is impossible." The alien's expression remained neutral, but Maya caught a flicker of amusement in those large eyes. The successful candidate would gain full access to Catherian knowledge and technology. They would study alongside the galaxy's greatest minds and contribute to projects that shape the future of entire civilizations. The room fell silent. Maya's mind raced. She had spent the last 2 years analyzing fragments of Catherian technology that had been shared with Earth as part of basic diplomatic protocols. While everyone else marveled at how advanced it was, Maya had noticed something different. There were patterns in their designs that seemed inefficient to her. Small things that a human engineer might have done differently. "I'll do it," Maya said suddenly. Every head in the room turned toward her. Director Jackson actually laughed out loud. "Maya, be serious. You're a brilliant astrophysicist, but this is impossible. Why embarrass ourselves and waste 6 months of valuable research time?" Maya stood up, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. She was used to being underestimated. As one of the few women in her field, she had fought for respect her entire career. But this felt different. This felt like the challenge she had been waiting for her whole life. "Director, with respect, how do we know it's impossible unless we try? Maybe their way of thinking isn't the only way." Dr. Chang looked concerned. "Maya dear, I understand the appeal, but failure would essentially end your career. The scientific community would never let you live it down. And 6 months of preparation with no guarantee of success?" "There's never a guarantee of success in real science," Maya replied. "Every breakthrough happens because someone tried something that others thought was impossible." The ambassador watched this exchange with obvious interest. "Dr. Rodriguez, is it? You would volunteer for this assessment knowing that failure is virtually certain?" Maya met the alien's gaze directly. "I would volunteer because failure is virtually certain. That's what makes it worth doing." Something shifted in Zethkaros's expression. For just a moment, the condescension seemed to fade. "Very well. We will provide you with the study materials. Be warned that they are quite extensive. Our mathematics alone operates on principles your species has never encountered." "We'll see about that," Maya said quietly. After the hologram vanished and the meeting ended, Maya found herself surrounded by concerned colleagues. Most tried to talk her out of it. A few offered support, though she could see the doubt in their eyes. Dr. Chang pulled her aside as the room emptied. Maya, I've watched you do impossible things before, but this is different. The Catherians have had millions of years to develop their science. They've conquered diseases, mastered energy, and built an empire that spans thousands of worlds. What makes you think a human can compete with that? Maya looked out the window at the star-filled sky. Somewhere up there, alien civilizations pursued knowledge and pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Earth remained on the outside, always catching up, always behind. Helen, remember when I was working on the wormhole stability equations last year? Everyone said the math was impossible. But I found a solution. Because I didn't approach it the same way everyone else did. Maybe that's what we need here. Maybe being human isn't a disadvantage. Maybe it's exactly what this challenge needs. Dr. Chang sighed. And if you're wrong? Maya smiled. Then I'll be wrong spectacularly. But if I'm right, everything changes. Not just for me, but for all of humanity. We'll finally prove that we belong among the stars. That evening, Maya sat in her small apartment, staring at the datapad the Catherians had provided. The study guide was enormous. 17 different fields of science, each more complex than anything she had ever encountered. The mathematics used symbols she had never seen. The physics concepts seemed to bend reality in ways that hurt her head to contemplate. But as she scrolled through the material, Maya began to notice something. The Catherian approach to every problem was incredibly sophisticated, but it was also predictable. They had formulas for everything, procedures that never varied, assumptions that went unquestioned. Maya had always been good at finding patterns that others missed. It had made her an excellent scientist and sometimes a difficult colleague. Now, looking at this impossible challenge, she wondered if her greatest weakness might become her greatest strength. She opened her laptop and began making notes. 6 months to master what the galaxy's most advanced civilization had spent millennia perfecting. 6 months to prove that a human mind could compete with alien intelligence. 6 months to change everything. Maya's alarm clock buzzed at 4 in the morning, just as it had every day for the past month. She rolled out of bed, grabbed her coffee, and headed down to the underground laboratory she had claimed as her study space. The facility's basement was quiet, isolated, and had no windows to distract her from the massive task ahead. The walls were now covered with whiteboards filled with alien equations, strange symbols, and Maya's own handwritten notes. Stacks of printed materials towered on every available surface. The Catherian study guide had turned out to be even more overwhelming than she had expected. Maya sat down at her desk and opened the latest section. Advanced Temporal Mechanics in Nonlinear Space. The words seemed to swim before her tired eyes. She had been working 18 hours a day for weeks, and her body was starting to rebel. Her friends had stopped calling after she turned down invitation after invitation. Her boyfriend Kevin had finally given up and moved out last week. This is insane, she muttered to herself, rubbing her temples. The mathematics in this section required her to think in 11 dimensions simultaneously, while accounting for time flowing in 3 different directions. She had read the same paragraph 15 times and still couldn't make sense of it. A knock on the laboratory door interrupted her frustration. Maya looked up to see Ben Morrison, one of the facility's maintenance workers, standing in the doorway with his cleaning cart. Sorry, Dr. Rodriguez. Didn't know anyone was down here this early. I can come back later. Maya had seen Ben around the facility for years but had never really talked to him. He was quiet, efficient, and seemed to have an unusual interest in the scientific equipment he cleaned. She had once caught him reading through a quantum physics textbook during his break. It's okay, Ben, come on in. I could use the company anyway. Ben started cleaning while Maya went back to her equations. After a few minutes, she heard him clear his throat. Dr. Rodriguez, can I ask what you're working on? Those symbols look really interesting. Maya explained about the Catherian entrance exam and her 6-month deadline. As she talked, she noticed Ben's eyes following the equations on her whiteboards with obvious understanding. You know math? She asked. Ben's face turned slightly red. I used to study at MIT, before I got kicked out for arguing with professors too much. I have some strong opinions about conventional approaches to problem solving. Maya sat up straighter. What kind of opinions? Well, looking at this equation here, Ben pointed to one of the more complex formulas. The Catherians are using a really complicated method to describe particle behavior. But if you think about it differently, there might be a much simpler way to get the same result. For the next hour, Ben walked Maya through his perspective on the mathematics. His approach was unconventional, even strange, but it worked. More importantly, it was intuitive in a way that the Catherian methods weren't. Ben, how would you like to help me study for this exam? I think I need a different perspective. Ben's eyes lit up. You're serious? You want a janitor to help you prepare for the most advanced scientific test in the galaxy? I want a genius to help me prepare, Maya corrected. The janitor thing is just your day job. Word about Maya's unconventional study group spread quickly through the facility. Within a week, she had gained 2 more unexpected allies. Lisa Park was a young mathematician who had been denied a permanent position because her methods were considered too unorthodox. She solved complex problems through intuitive leaps rather than formal proofs, arriving at correct answers through paths that made traditional mathematicians uncomfortable. Jake Williams was a former military engineer who had left the service to pursue graduate studies in applied physics. His approach to every problem was practical rather than theoretical. While other scientists worried about elegant solutions, Jake focused on what actually worked in the real world. The 4 of them transformed Maya's basement laboratory into something that looked more like a war room than a study space. They worked from dawn until midnight, surviving on coffee, takeout food, and stubborn determination. Maya's official colleagues thought she had lost her mind, but her underground team was making progress that amazed even her. The breakthrough came during their 3rd week together. Maya was struggling with a section on interstellar navigation that required understanding 17 different mathematical frameworks simultaneously. The Catherian method was to memorize each framework perfectly and switch between them as needed. This is impossible, Maya groaned. My brain can't hold all of this at once. Lisa looked over her shoulder at the equations. Why are you trying to memorize them separately? They're all describing the same thing from different angles. What if we combined them into one unified approach? You can't do that, Maya said automatically. The Catherian textbook specifically says these frameworks are distinct and must be maintained independently. But why? Jake asked. Just because they say so doesn't make it true. In the military, we learned that complicated solutions usually meant someone was overthinking the problem. Ben nodded enthusiastically. The Catherians might be brilliant, but they've been doing things the same way for thousands of years. Maybe they've forgotten how to innovate. Maya stared at the equations with fresh eyes. What if her team was right? What if the Catherians had built their entire educational system on assumptions that weren't necessarily correct? She spent the next 3 days working with her team to develop what they called the human approach to Catherian science. Instead of memorizing alien formulas, they derived their own. Instead of accepting Catherian paradigms without question, they looked for underlying patterns and connections. The results were stunning. Their unified navigation system was not only easier to understand, but it was also more efficient than the traditional Catherian method. Their approach to energy manipulation required 30% less computational power. Their solutions to complex physics problems were more elegant and practical than anything in the study materials. We're not just learning their science, Maya realized one evening as they worked late into the night. We're improving it. As the weeks passed, Maya's unconventional study group developed into something much more significant. They weren't just preparing for an exam anymore. They were developing an entirely new approach to advanced science that combined human creativity with alien knowledge. Maya's personal life completely disappeared during this period. She stopped answering her phone, ignored emails from friends, and forgot about everything except the challenge ahead. Her health suffered from the long hours and poor diet, but her mind had never been sharper. 2 months before the exam, Maya made a discovery that changed everything. She was reviewing a section on faster-than-light travel when she noticed an inconsistency in the Catherian mathematics. They treated certain physical constants as truly constant across all dimensional states. But Maya's calculations suggested this might not be accurate. She spent 3 sleepless nights checking and double-checking her work. When she finally confirmed her suspicions, she called her team together for an emergency meeting. I think the Catherians made a mistake, she announced, a fundamental error that their entire faster-than-light technology is built on. The room fell silent. Ben was the first to speak. Are you saying their science is wrong? Not wrong exactly, Maya replied, but incomplete. They're forcing reality to work the way they think it should instead of understanding how it actually works. What if there's a better way? Lisa leaned forward excitedly. If you're right, that means we're not just trying to pass their test. We might actually be able to teach them something. Maya looked around at her unlikely team of misfits and outcasts, a janitor with a genius IQ, a mathematician who thought outside the box, an engineer who valued results over theory, and a scientist who refused to accept that anything was impossible. That's exactly what I'm thinking, she said. We're not just going to pass their exam. We're going to revolutionize their understanding of science. The transport shuttle felt impossibly small as it approached the Catherian examination vessel. Maya pressed her face against the small porthole, watching the massive ship grow larger with each passing moment. The Academy vessel was easily 10 times the size of Earth's largest space station, its surface covered in elegant spires and glowing geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Maya's stomach churned, though she wasn't sure if it was from nervousness or the artificial gravity fluctuations during docking. Beside her sat Dr. Alex Murphy, a conservative physicist who had spent the entire 6 months memorizing the Catherian study materials word for word. Across from them, Dr. Rita Foster reviewed her biochemistry notes for the 100th time, muttering formulas under her breath. I still think this is a waste of time, Alex said, not looking up from his data pad. We're about to embarrass our entire species in front of the galaxy's most advanced civilization. Rita nodded nervously. The mathematics alone are beyond anything we've ever encountered. How are we supposed to compete with beings who have been perfecting this science for millions of years? Maya said nothing. She had spent the morning in meditation, clearing her mind and reviewing the unconventional approaches her team had developed. Ben, Lisa, and Jake had wanted to come with her, but only official candidates were allowed on the examination vessel. She carried their hopes with her, along with the weight of representing all humanity. The shuttle docked with a soft thump, and the airlock hissed open. A tall Catherian in flowing robes waited to escort them inside. Maya's first step onto the alien ship was like entering a dream. The corridors were made of some crystalline material that seemed to glow from within. Strange music drifted through the air, and the walls displayed shifting patterns that were both beautiful and impossible to focus on. Welcome, Earth candidates, their escort said in perfect English. I am Examiner Forthlin. You will be taken to your quarters to rest before the examination begins tomorrow. Please note that you will have no further contact with your homeworld until the testing is complete. They were led through a maze of corridors to a section clearly designed for visiting species. The rooms were comfortable but sterile, with none of the artistic beauty found in the rest of the ship. Maya settled in for the night, but sleep was impossible. Through her small window, she could see other transport ships arriving, bringing candidates from across the galaxy. The next morning, Maya joined a procession of beings that looked like something from a science fiction movie. There were crystalline entities that chimed when they moved, gaseous creatures contained in environmental suits, machine intelligences with gleaming metal bodies, and dozens of other species she couldn't even begin to categorize. The examination hall was enormous, with hundreds of individual testing stations arranged in precise rows. Each station was equipped with holographic displays and input devices that automatically adjusted to the user's physiology. Maya found herself assigned to Station 847, between a 6-armed reptilian creature and something that looked like a floating brain in a jar. High Examiner Vorthnal stood at the front of the hall on a raised platform. The ancient Catherian's presence was intimidating even at a distance. Its voice carried clearly throughout the massive space without amplification. Candidates, you are about to undertake the most challenging intellectual assessment in known space. The examination consists of 3 phases: theoretical knowledge, practical application, and creative problem solving. Historically, most candidates fail to complete the first phase. None who are not Catherian have ever reached the third. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Around her, alien candidates were making last-minute preparations, some humming, others flickering with strange lights, and a few simply standing in perfect stillness. You have 8 hours for the theoretical phase. Begin now. Maya's holographic display came to life with the first question. It was a complex problem involving 11-dimensional calculus that would have taken her months to solve using traditional methods. But instead of approaching it the Catherian way, she applied the unified mathematical framework her team had developed. The answer came to her in minutes rather than hours. The second question dealt with exotic particle behavior in zero-gravity environments. Again, Maya used her team's simplified approach, finding elegant solutions that bypassed the complicated traditional methods. As the hours passed, Maya noticed displays around her going dark. Candidates were failing at an alarming rate. The six-armed reptilian beside her had been eliminated within the first hour. The floating brain lasted 3 hours before its station shut down with a soft chime of failure. Dr. Murphy's station went dark just before lunch break. Maya caught a glimpse of his devastated expression as he was escorted from the hall. Dr. Foster lasted until mid-afternoon before succumbing to a section on silicon-based biochemistry that her Earth-based knowledge couldn't handle. Maya was now the only human left in the examination. More importantly, she was among only 30 candidates remaining from the original 300. Her methods were working better than she had dared hope. The questions grew increasingly difficult as the day progressed. Maya faced problems involving time travel paradoxes, consciousness transfer between incompatible life forms, and mathematical concepts that existed in dimensions beyond normal space. Each challenge would have been impossible using conventional Cytherian approaches, but her human intuition and lateral thinking found pathways that others missed. During one particularly difficult section on quantum consciousness, Maya noticed that several questions contained built-in assumptions that led to contradictory answers. The questions themselves were traps, designed to catch candidates who accepted every premise without critical thinking. Maya's willingness to question the questions themselves gave her a significant advantage. While other candidates struggled with unsolvable problems, she identified the flawed assumptions and worked around them. Her scores continued to climb. As evening approached, only 12 candidates remained active in the vast examination hall. Maya was shocked to realize she was not only still in the competition, but actually performing well. The other survivors included representatives from some of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, beings whose species had mastered space travel before humans had even developed agriculture. The final question of the theoretical phase appeared on Maya's display just as exhaustion was beginning to cloud her thinking. It was a massive problem that combined elements from all 17 fields of study, requiring simultaneous mastery of concepts that most beings spent lifetimes learning individually. Maya stared at the question for several minutes, feeling overwhelmed. This was beyond anything her team had prepared for. The problem was so complex that she couldn't even understand what it was asking at first. Then she remembered something Ben had said during one of their late-night study sessions. When a problem looks impossible, step back and ask if you're looking at it the right way. Maya cleared her mind and approached the question not as 17 separate challenges but as a single, unified problem. Instead of trying to solve each component individually, she looked for the underlying pattern that connected them all. Suddenly she saw it. The question wasn't really about mastering 17 different fields. It was about understanding the fundamental relationship between matter, energy, consciousness, and space-time. Everything else was just different ways of describing the same basic truth. Maya's solution was elegant in its simplicity. While other candidates created massive, multi-layered equations, she developed a single formula that unified all the required concepts. Her answer was not only correct, but revealed deeper insights that the question's authors probably hadn't intended to explore. When the 8-hour time limit expired, Maya was one of only 8 candidates whose displays remained active. She had not only survived the theoretical phase, but had achieved one of the highest scores in the examination's history. High Examiner Vorth Nal announced the results with obvious surprise in its voice. The surviving candidates will have tonight to rest before beginning the practical application phase tomorrow. We congratulate those who have progressed to this point. As Maya walked back to her quarters, she passed groups of Cytherian observers speaking in hushed, urgent tones. She caught fragments of their conversations and realized they were discussing her performance specifically. Words like impossible and unprecedented kept coming up. Maya smiled to herself as she settled in for another sleepless night. She had proven that a human could compete at the highest levels of galactic science, but the real test was just beginning. Maya woke to find her quarters filled with soft, melodic tones that seemed to come from the walls themselves. It was the Cytherian equivalent of an alarm clock, she realized, though much more pleasant than the harsh buzzing she was used to on Earth. Today would bring the practical application phase, where candidates had to design real solutions to actual galactic problems. The examination hall had been transformed overnight. Instead of simple testing stations, candidates now worked at elaborate holographic workstations equipped with access to simulated Cytherian technology. Maya marveled at the interface that appeared when she placed her hands on the control surface. She could manipulate matter at the molecular level, design spacecraft that defied Earth physics, and access computational power that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Only 8 candidates remained from yesterday's theoretical phase. Maya studied her competition with growing nervousness. There was Zeth Korvac, a crystalline being whose species had mastered dimensional mathematics before humans had discovered fire. Morth 7 was a machine intelligence with processing capabilities that Maya couldn't even comprehend. The others represented equally advanced civilizations with millions of years of scientific development. High Examiner Vorthnal addressed the survivors with what seemed like grudging respect. Phase 2 will test your ability to apply theoretical knowledge to practical challenges. You will face 3 problems drawn from current issues affecting the Cytherian Empire and our allies. Your solutions will be evaluated not only for correctness but for efficiency, elegance, and innovation. The first challenge appeared on Maya's display: optimizing trade routes through a region of space containing unstable wormholes. Ships traveling through the area faced unpredictable gravitational fluctuations that could destroy vessels or strand them in unknown parts of the galaxy. The traditional Cytherian approach involved massive computational arrays that calculated safe passages in real time, but the system was expensive and required constant maintenance. Maya watched as her fellow candidates began designing elaborate solutions. Zeth Korvac created a network of gravitational anchors that would stabilize the wormholes through brute force manipulation of spacetime. Morth 7 developed a predictive algorithm that required the construction of 17 monitoring stations throughout the region. Maya took a different approach. Instead of trying to control or predict the unstable wormholes, she studied their behavior patterns. After an hour of analysis, she realized that the seemingly random fluctuations actually followed a complex but predictable cycle based on the interaction of multiple gravitational fields. Her solution was inspired by something she had learned from Jake during their preparation. In military strategy, you didn't always fight against obstacles. Sometimes the best approach was to use them to your advantage. Maya designed a dynamic routing system that treated the unstable wormholes as opportunities rather than threats. Ships would adjust their travel times to take advantage of favorable fluctuations, turning the region's instability into a strategic advantage that could actually reduce travel time. The examining panel was quiet for a long moment after Maya submitted her solution. High Examiner Vorthnal studied the holographic display with obvious confusion. Candidate Maya, your approach is unconventional. You are proposing to increase exposure to the dangerous phenomena rather than minimizing it. Yes, sir, Maya replied confidently. My analysis shows that the unstable wormholes follow predictable patterns over longer time periods. By working with these patterns instead of against them, we can reduce energy costs by 40% and actually improve travel speed by an average of 23%. Several Cytherian observers exchanged glances. Maya caught fragments of their whispered conversation, including words that roughly translated to primitive thinking and dangerously simplistic. The second challenge involved designing habitats for a newly discovered species that breathed methane and required high-pressure environments. The beings needed to coexist on the same planets as oxygen-breathing species, but their environmental requirements seemed completely incompatible. Maya's competitors created impressive solutions involving atmospheric processors, environmental barriers, and complex life support systems. These designs would work, but they were incredibly expensive and energy-intensive. Maya thought about the problem differently. Instead of trying to create separate environments for incompatible species, she looked for ways they could actually benefit each other. Her research during the preparation months had included studying Earth's ecosystems, where seemingly incompatible life forms often developed mutually beneficial relationships. Her habitat design used the methane-breathing species' waste products as raw materials for the oxygen breathers' life support systems, while the oxygen breathers produced compounds that the methane species needed for nutrition. The two groups wouldn't just coexist, They would form a symbiotic ecosystem that was stronger than either species could create alone. This is biomimicry, Maya explained when asked to present her solution. On Earth, we've learned that the most efficient systems are often based on natural partnerships, rather than artificial separations. High Examiner Vorthnal's expression was difficult to read. You propose to make these species dependent on each other rather than maintaining their independence. I propose to help them thrive together, Maya corrected. Independence is sometimes less valuable than cooperation. The third and final challenge was the most complex: designing a defensive system for a frontier colony that faced threats from space pirates, natural disasters, and unknown alien predators. The colony had limited resources and couldn't afford the massive military installations that the Catherian Empire typically used for such purposes. Maya watched as her remaining competitors designed increasingly elaborate defense networks. Zeth Korvac's solution involved orbital weapons platforms and energy shields that could protect the entire planet. Morth 7 created an early warning system linked to automated defense drones. Both solutions were impressive and would certainly work, but they required enormous amounts of resources and ongoing maintenance. Maya drew on Jake's military experience and her own understanding of asymmetric warfare. Instead of trying to outgun potential attackers, she designed a defense system based on deception, mobility, and unpredictability. Her colony would appear weak and undefended to potential raiders, but would actually be protected by hidden defensive systems that could be rapidly deployed when needed. For natural disasters, Maya's system used early detection and rapid response rather than trying to prevent or withstand every possible threat. For unknown predators, she designed adaptable responses that could evolve based on new threats rather than preparing for every possible scenario in advance. Your defensive strategy appears to rely on appearing vulnerable, one of the examining panel observed. How does this protect the colony? Maya smiled. Sometimes the best defense is not looking like you need one. Predators, whether they're pirates or actual creatures, usually prefer easy targets. If you make yourself look like more trouble than you're worth, they'll usually find someone else to bother. As the practical phase concluded, Maya realized that her human perspective had become her greatest advantage. While her competitors created solutions based on superior technology and overwhelming force, Maya had focused on efficiency, cooperation, and working with natural systems rather than against them. The results were announced an hour later. To Maya's amazement, she had not only passed the practical phase but had achieved the highest scores in 2 of the 3 challenges. More importantly, her solutions used significantly fewer resources while achieving better results than the traditional approaches. High Examiner Vorthnal addressed the 4 remaining candidates with obvious discomfort. The creative problem-solving phase will begin tomorrow. This final challenge has special significance. In 3,000 years of examinations, only 17 non-Catherian candidates have reached this point. None have ever completed it successfully. As Maya returned to her quarters that evening, she noticed increased activity throughout the ship. Groups of Catherian scientists gathered in corners speaking in urgent whispers. She overheard fragments of heated discussions about examination protocols, traditional methodologies, and something called the paradigm question. Maya tried to sleep, but her mind kept racing. She had proven that human thinking could compete with the galaxy's most advanced minds, but tomorrow would bring the ultimate test, a challenge that had defeated every non-Catherian candidate in the Academy's long history. Whatever they were planning to throw at her, Maya was determined to meet it with everything she had learned about thinking like a human in an alien universe. The Institute became a magnet for unconventional thinkers from both Earth and other worlds. Ben developed new approaches to mathematical problem-solving that revolutionized computational theory. Lisa's intuitive methods became standard teaching techniques in universities across the galaxy. Jake's practical engineering solutions saved countless lives and resources throughout known space. Maya herself continued to challenge assumptions and push boundaries. Her faster-than-light framework eventually led to the development of drives that were not only more efficient than